hope everyone was able to visit with their father, whatever. I had a nice Father's Day. And I saw Max Zercher's no-hitter at Nationals Park on Saturday, so that was a real terrific weekend. But I think the highlight of the weekend for this purpose was the opening of the Silver Spring Library. It feels really great to see county government produce something on schedule and something that people can really be proud of. It's the nicest library in Montgomery County, and Silver Spring is a huge, diverse community. The old library on Colesville Road is just too small and inadequate, overcrowded. The collection was not of an adequate size. And this new library, many of you who've been listening have heard me express concern that we don't build architecturally distinctive buildings, but this one is. It's unusual, it's beautiful. I think it'll get national attention, and I just think we should all be really proud of it. Tomorrow, the most significant item we'll take up is Bill 6014, the Earned Sick and Safe Leave Bill. I'm optimistic that it will pass. Not surprisingly, some employers are voicing concerns. We're trying to address those concerns and explain. I had an employer write me that he doesn't trust his employees, that he notices that they get sick around holidays and they get sick whenever their kids come to visit, and he demands a doctor's note. Well, fine, this bill allows employers to ask for a doctor's note. So I think people's misunderstanding about this, when most employers review what's actually required under the bill, I believe most employers will find that they're already doing most of what's required and that it won't call for significant changes. But for those few employers who are actually forcing employees to choose between showing up for work sick or sacrificing income, I don't think that's the right choice for any worker to have to make. I don't think any worker should be at risk of being unable to pay her rent because she was sick or her child was sick. I just think this is a fundamental protection that I've always had in my career, and I think most professionals do have. And so I think that what the bill really does is it looks out for the interests of employees who have the least bargaining power. And under circumstances like that, as with, I think I said this last week, as with the prohibition of child labor or relatively low minimum wage, it's appropriate for government to step in and provide some equalization on behalf of those employees who themselves have the least bargaining power. So I'll yield to any of you for questions you may have, whatever's on your minds.
Last week you had the public hearing on the towing bill. What were your thoughts after what you heard that night?
I wasn't present for that. It was a public hearing of the Transportation and Environment Committee. I know that there are a lot of complaints in business districts, Wheaton, Silver Spring, the Whole Foods parking lot. I hear a lot of complaints. I think towing companies jump very quickly and shoppers are inconvenienced. I know that there are some legitimate complaints from homeowners associations who don't want people occupying parking spaces that they're not entitled to, and I think the committee will make some accommodations to clarify that you, in a homeowners association, you can't take somebody's parking space from in front of their home. But as far as commercial districts go, the bill just imposes some reasonable time and some reasonable accommodation, and I think the T&E committee will take it up in a careful and thoughtful way.
Purple line, I know we're all waiting.
Haven't
for
heard.
the word from
Don't have any news. No, I'm not getting any news from the Hogan administration on this, and the Hogan administration has not reached out to Montgomery County. I mean, the press has reported that Governor Hogan may ask the counties to pitch in more money. No such request has been made. People are saying, well, what sort of reductions in cost could you support? They haven't proposed any reductions in cost. We don't know. It's all speculation. Are they talking about fewer stations, longer headways? It's all speculation. There is virtually no communication at this point between the Hogan administration and Montgomery County. We just don't know what they're pondering on the Purple Line. Hope to find out soon. They say it'll be by the end of June, so presumably it'll be soon.
I did get an email, and forgive me because I'm not as well versed on the routing of the Purple Line and precisely what it'll do in downtown Silver Spring, but I did get an email of someone expressing concern, and they tied it into the opening of the Silver Spring Library, that at some point the train would go underneath or near the overhang of the library.
Underneath, yes, that's correct.
They're again, and they're speaking out of, I don't know how they pull that off. I don't know how you could accommodate that and then not tangle downtown traffic. Could you speak to the impact of?
It's been very thoughtfully planned, and all the diagrams are available at purplelinemd.com. The Purple Line will come from the Silver Spring Transit Center. It'll come down Bonifant Street. It will turn slightly left underneath the Silver Spring Library, which was specifically built the way it was built to accommodate the Purple Line, and then it'll continue along Wayne Avenue towards Long Branch. And it's all been very carefully planned, and it'll be something of a change, but it's been in the works for years, and for those of us who've been paying close attention, none of this is new or a surprise, and the library will be a great location for Purple Line riders. It'll really bring patrons to the library very conveniently and easily, and for all of the folks it's a very densely populated residential area, it'll be a big advantage to have the Purple Line so close by, including the 129 or so affordable senior units being constructed right now at the Bonifant building next to the library. For those low-income senior residents, the Purple Line will just be tremendous. They'll be able to take it back and forth, connect to Metro. They'll be able to watch a Terps game at the University of Maryland and get home without having to have a car. It's just it's going to improve the convenience and quality of life of everybody nearby.
Tomorrow, there's also a vote on the, I believe it was scheduled at least, on the tipped wages, or tipped
Yes.
workers' wage. Talk about what that bill, where that bill stands, what it says right now.
Yes.
As you go to vote for it.
So when our county council adopted the minimum wage, we were working in collaboration with the District of Columbia and Prince George's County on the issue of wages for tipped employees. Because we acted first, we did not know what the district and what Prince George's would do. What they've done is they've kept the base rate, the base wage for a tipped employee at the state wage and not at the higher wage that we've adopted in Montgomery County. And so we're going back now that we know what our neighboring jurisdictions have done, to conform our law with the law in the District of Columbia and in Prince George's County, so that restaurant owners are not encountering higher costs for their tipped employees than what they would encounter if they were doing business in the District of Columbia or Prince George's County. It was always our purpose to conform our proposal to those two jurisdictions, and we're continuing to act in that spirit.
And it's half the state rate?
It's half the state wage. Yes, that's correct. But tipped employees do not earn the minimum wage. Tipped employees get their income through tips. So the base wage is just that. It's a base over which they earn tips, which substantially exceed the minimum wage.
At the committee meeting on that bill, you had said you found it, I forget the exact word, but kind of regrettable that the surrounding jurisdictions didn't act to raise the tipped base wage.
Well, I know that some will perceive that we're somehow placing tipped workers at a disadvantage or harming them. I know that perception will be out there. And so we have to explain, as I'm doing now, what we're doing. And what we're doing is conforming our law to the two neighboring jurisdictions as we intended from the beginning.
The free-range parents were clear, apparently. Would you know about that? Your reaction? Do you still have questions?
No, I don't have any. I really don't have any questions. I think Child Protective Services tries very hard in very difficult circumstances to make difficult choices, and so in this case the matter's been adjudicated and now it's behind us. It's over.
Do you think it's clear in Montgomery County what the rules are in terms of sending your kids to the park?
I think that parents need to exercise good judgment and act in ways that they believe are safe for their children.
Okay, I have another question.
I mean, I've never heard of any other complaint other than the Métis family. So I don't think that there's an epidemic of Child Protective Service workers swooping down and taking children away from their parents. So I always found this to be a highly publicized single incident in Montgomery County. I'm not aware that it's widespread. I'm not aware that there's any systemic problems.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure.
Department of Economic Development, when I was reading some of the material, they were talking about establishing a county of agriculture.
An Office of Agricultural Services, yes.
Yes. Can you, what does that mean, and
Sure.
what do you know about it?
Oh yeah, well, right now we have a Division of Agricultural Services in the Department of Economic Development, which, among other things, administers the Transferable Development Rights Program, whereby farmers can receive money without selling and developing and subdividing their land. They can keep their land in agriculture but sell the development rights for a public purpose. So that's not really an economic development issue. There will still be some activity in the new entity to promote Montgomery County agriculture, but administering USDA funds, administering cooperative extension, there are a variety of things that are just related to the day-to-day operations of farming, and as I mentioned, the transferable development rights program that are really local government functions, but not so much economic development functions. So in dismantling the government department and creating a new private entity, there are still some governmental functions that need to continue, and they will do in county government. So we created an office in county government to continue those services to farmers.
Who's going to lead that office?
Well, that'll be for the county executive to decide. It's currently led by Jeremy Chris. I'm not aware that there's any proposal to change his responsibilities, but that would be the county executive's responsibility.
The Rockville City Council recently changed the rules on keeping hens within the city limits. I know that at the point at which Montgomery County basically banned puppy mill operations, there was discussion that they would follow suit and follow along. Have you heard anything?
You know,
from
this
them on
this
that?
chickens issue was a really controversial topic when we took up the zoning rewrite in 2014. And ultimately, we made no change to the county's current zoning law, which does allow chicken coops, but it's some distance from the property line to avoid having chickens cause any problems for next door neighbors or incur onto next door neighbors' property. So I've not heard. From time to time, we get neighbors who would like to liberalize the rules, who would like to have chicken coops on smaller lots, but not many. And I don't detect that there's much appetite among my colleagues at this moment to take up the issue again.
But I'm sorry, I'm referring to, has Rockville gotten back to you on following your lead on the puppy mill?
Oh, I don't know where that stands. No, I don't think that the city council took up the puppy mill.
I haven't seen it either. And I didn't know.
Yeah, a member of the Rockville City Council had indicated to me that she was interested, but I don't think that's happened yet. I'm not sure about that. I was wondering that too when I read the coverage about Rockville City. I didn't see any mention of the puppy mill thing, and I haven't been in touch with my friends on the Rockville Council on the issue, so I don't know what they have in mind on that.
Have you gotten any updates on the body-worn cameras? Did the police department get the volunteers they needed?
They are still recruiting volunteers. I don't think they've filled out the entire number of volunteers that they needed, but they're still looking for volunteers. As far as I know, they're getting them. It'd be a good question to ask Chief Mage.
On the earnings and safety bill, I've seen in some of the testimony that nonprofits are concerned about the cost for them and have asked if there's a possibility to exempt nonprofits from the laws. What is your reaction to it?
I just really think that this is a minimal protection so that for workers to have to choose between showing up for work sick and exposing customers and clients to contagious disease, or losing your job, or losing necessary income to pay the rent, I really just don't think that this is a very onerous requirement. So I know that some entities would like to be exempt, and if council members bring up amendments tomorrow, they'll be in order, and we'll consider them. There will be amendments tomorrow. I'm not aware of any amendment exempting nonprofits, and the committee did not exempt nonprofits.
Can you tell us where you are with the Department of Liquor Control, the review, and what's happening?
Yes. So a resolution will be drafted on behalf of the committee. I don't yet know what that resolution says, so when we have the language, we'll determine whether it does represent the committee's views. In general, we've been talking about option 4, which is partial privatization, whereby special orders would be handled through private distributors, not by the county. Everything I've heard indicates to me that that's a good approach, and I believe that that's Mr. Reamer's view as well. Mr. Elrich needs to review what our staff drafts for us, so he was not in a position to state that he supports option 4 last Friday, but we'll see what the resolution embodies. After the resolution is introduced, we'll have a public hearing on it, and then after the public hearing, the committee will determine whether it is the committee's position, and then we'll forward the resolution to the full council, and we'll determine whether that's the full council's position, and then we'll work with Mr. Leggett. I hope that Mr. Leggett will be persuaded of the merits of whatever the council's views are. It's really in Mr. Leggett's hands. Although I think that the work of the Liquor Control Ad Hoc Committee has been very successful and productive, I don't think the Department of Liquor Control would be devoting as much attention to its own shortcomings had we not appointed this ad hoc committee. We really don't have any legal authority to compel, the county council doesn't have legal authority to compel changes in the administration of that department. It really is up to Mr. Leggett, and it may require changes to state law. So there's a lot of collaboration and discussion that still needs to occur.
Are things getting better since the review process has begun? Are you getting just as many complaints of complaints?
We're still getting complaints. And if you were listening to Friday's discussion, all of the corrections were in the future. So, you know, they talked about how great it's going to be.
So still a big problem for folks relying on liquor.
I think the customer service at that department is not what we expect from county government, and I think changes are very much warranted.
And in terms of the resolution, so the next committee meeting would be until the fall, I think?
I believe that's correct. I don't think, is that Ms. Lauer? I think that's right. So we don't have any more ad hoc liquor control committee meetings scheduled now. A resolution will be drafted. It'll be introduced. Do we have a date for that?
The goal is to introduce on the 30th if they can pull.
I'm just going to repeat. Our council clerk says that our goal is to introduce the resolution on June 30, and then
hopefully for a hearing on July 21st.
and a public hearing on July 21st on the resolution. Thank you, Ms. Lauer.
Special orders constitute what?
So, special orders are beer, wine, and spirits that are for which there is less regular demand than the stock orders. It's something like 20% of all sales. So your stock orders are things like Miller Lite that they always have in stock, that's always available, that every vendor always needs. Whereas what you find particularly with high-end restaurants, they like to have a wine list that's interesting and distinctive and different, and so they will want to stock labels of wine that people aren't just always buying routinely, that it's a special opportunity to go to that restaurant. And so what we find is that the restaurants want to have unique and hard to find brands, and then we're hearing complaints because our department isn't always able to have available unique and hard to find brands. So I think at this point it makes sense to just let the private sector handle that aspect of the business, because that's where the majority of complaints are coming from.
Any updates on the Silver Spring Transit Center?
Well, the county executive said on Saturday that it's in a matter of a few weeks, soon in July, it'll be turned over to WMATA, and then WMATA will have to assess whether it wants to maintain it and operate it. So we're very close to opening the facility.
Have you been there? Have you toured it?
I have not.
Any interest?
I'd like to, yeah. Anything else? All right, well, thank you all very much. I always appreciate these sessions. Thanks a lot.